All right. It sounded really good, actually.
Okay. Well, we're gonna change it up here for 1 second, so let me know how it sounds again.
Okay.
Have it go ahead,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, the best thing in the future would be like go to the dollar store, get a splitter,
We're not.
get some headphones.
Zach.
Yeah,
It's
Yep.
coming probably.
yeah.
Let me see. Let
It's
me
not.
see.
It's not picking it up somehow. No, we shouldn't have to do anything to make it pick it up. So let's just do without it. We can deal without it. It's
Hey,
loud enough.
yeah,
Why isn't it making that signal? That's weird.
Zach.
Yep.
What? Were you talking before, or were you just not talking?
I was. I don't think you
Let's
could
try.
hear me.
Hold on. Because I'm trying to plug it into a speaker, but hold on.
Okay. Give it a second for it to boot. And he should be right here as soon as it clicks. Click. Right? Should be able to hear him. How you doing, Zach?
Hello, hello.
Yeah.
There we go. There we go.
Excellent. I actually got a holder too for that. We can prop it up.
Perfect. All right. So now you're gonna have a little bit of feedback in your voice because of the speakers.
Okay.
Here, put it right. Set it right
Well,
there for
I
now.
can't hear it on my end, so that's fine.
Really?
Oh, wait.
No, it sounds good coming out of my headphones. It sounds fine.
Perfect. Perfect.
I can't hear myself at all.
Wow. How awesome is that? Sure enough.
Right. So
We're doing video or just audio tonight?
audio.
Excellent.
We can do a video eventually. I think it'd be a good idea.
I'm down. All right. So yeah, we're ready when you are, Zach.
All right, man. So, I don't know. I think we should start with just kind of getting familiar with this and how we want to do it. So, if there's any
Well,
topics that you want to talk about,
here's the cool topic.
yeah.
Your birthday was yesterday.
Yes, it was.
17th, right? February 17th.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, that was my birthday too, huh?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So he comes over here. We're talking about all kinds of crazy synchronicity and magical stuff, and he's like, "Oh, when was your birthday yesterday?" Oh, yeah, and then here it is. So
That's
welcome.
amazing.
You
Yeah, man.
know, that's life for us, huh?
That's crazy. Yeah, we just found out. You remember Shannon and Leah, the twins from New York?
Yeah.
Their mom's birthday is February 17th too.
That is weird.
Yeah.
That's weird.
Fun. So that's a good topic, like, just synchronicity and weird stuff. I mean, to me, those are the variables that exist in our experience, and I think people don't talk about them enough. People seem to be getting on with like Mandela effect and things, and because it's really odd and it's very, you know, talk worthy. But I think those type factors. I made a list of some things. We can go over that stuff if you want, because I'm curious. I want more feedback and hear from other people what they think this stuff means, and because I want to maximize it. I want to see if there's a way we can be in a flow state, and because that seems to be what it kind of revolves around, is like flow state and consciousness.
Sure.
And are you familiar with like the people that are starting to talk more about flow state and maximizing and learning about how to tap into it, and like Jason Silva and people like that?
Not really, no.
Yeah, Jason Silva was the host of Brain Games, that Discovery Channel show that was, breaking apart different kinds of ways the brain works or whatever. And he's since taken on to doing shots of awe, it's called, and he just goes into a flow state and kind of rants out topic matters philosophically, and it seems to be pretty inspired and inspirational to people. So um, he talks about flow states, and a lot of his colleagues are getting into the idea of maximizing what we can do to stay in and maximize flow states, like runner's high and things like that.
Okay.
So, just bringing up some topics like that, because flow state itself seems to be part of it, and just consciousness. So that's kind of where I'm at in life at this point. I'm writing an album with some friends, and we're illustrating these concepts through artistry in various ways. And Mike is coming to the table, and it seems that synchronicity is putting him in play with it too. So, it's a very magical time. So that's kind of where I'm at. I like talking about that kind of topic matter and where we're going.
Okay.
Because people want to dwell on where we've been and all the politics and stuff, and it's draggy, man.
Right.
I'm all about the up conversations, and I don't mind talking about old stuff, but if we're only getting past it, that's all, and that type of thing. So up to you, man. I'll let you have give me some feedback on all that.
Yeah, no, I haven't researched that too much, but you bring up some interesting things. Do you think the concept of like random, do you think it actually exists, or do you think we just can't calculate what random is? So, like, i.e., do coincidences actually happen? Is anything random? Is it something we should eventually be able to calculate, do you think?
I personally think it depends on your awareness of the randomness. If you become aware of something, I think it then changes and doesn't become as random. Like in my experience, like let's say like a deja vu, right? I think I think once you become aware of what's going to happen in your deja vu, it stops it from actually happening. So you see it starting, and then it never really finishes through. Like there's nothing bad that happens, like that may have happened in like your deja vu, and like that takes me to like with like quantum mechanics, like the particle and wave theory. Like if you observe it, it changes. So it has a different outcome depending on if there's an observer or if there isn't one. So I
Right.
think random, no, being able to calculate such thing, um, I don't, I don't think that, I don't think that's possible.
It's just, to me, it plays into synchronicity. Like where does, because there's the extra sensory type things that happen when we're reflecting on, we just thought of someone we haven't thought of in a long time, and then they call or we see them or something like that. So to me, it kind of like the idea of random, it's almost to me as questionable as free will. Because if we have just this limited perception of just who we are to begin with, then we don't even really know the extent to which we influence and are being influenced, to the extent that we exist, even like talking multidimensionality and frequency and vibration, all those things taken into consideration. It's hard to really narrow down and really call anything absolute in some respect. I mean, that's why I've been trying to figure things out. And I'm like, well, you can't really name anything for sure, even anything at all, because it's so nebulous, life in general, it seems, and even science changes, like with the observer, like you say.
It'd be trying to calculate potential
Right.
without knowing every variable.
I mean,
So you can't calculate.
You can at least calculate maybe probabilities, or
Yeah.
like about the those meters that they've placed throughout the world that
The
pick
random
up,
number
right,
generators.
right,
Yeah.
between those and some other things that are like that. They're picking up on spikes in consciousness in the world, like around. So I remember people talking about 9/11 when
And they
there was
all
spikes in consciousness
were
around that.
they synchronize more during an event like that because they almost like before it happens,
Right.
not when it happens or after it happens.
That's the odd thing, right before it happened. Yeah.
So to
Well,
come
maybe
back to come back to the deja vu thing before we get too far sidetracked,
I
there's a
want to say
theory.
something. Go ahead.
Yeah, there's a theory about deja vu that what it is it's basically like a hereditary trait, almost like a um, hereditary memory. So something that your parents may have seen, or ancestors may have seen, kind of like how if you isolate, like let's say mice, for instance, you breed them in captivity, they've never seen a predator before. As soon as you introduce like let's say a predator like a snake, they react, automatically, like instinctively. So to them, it's not deja vu. They've never seen it before. But do you think the same thing happens in humans? It only makes sense to me.
I'd like to say exactly on that. Yeah, like morphogenetic fields. The work of Rupert Sheldrake, he gets into the study of morphogenetic fields, and it talks about that exact thing, like genetic resonance, and the fact that we're carrying these traits, and like a lot of even our range of choices based on our lineage and everything. So where is free will in that? Even if our level of consciousness is more of who we really are than the body anyway. I mean, that's a big discrepancy as far as I'm concerned. Like, hey, why are we talking about that in this world? We're cool shit. Why are we just like being people, man? Come on. Like, we're so there's so much power available to us, and it's through these kinds of conversations. Um, Deja vu. We'll bring it back to that. I just want to say that because you mentioned about how you change it with your consciousness. I had an experience where like maybe 10 years ago, I changed my entire future of deja vuing by, I think I like wrote this letter to my mom and changed the course of action, because when I was sitting at the computer and she was supposed to walk in and experience like a flux and I felt like an argument coming on, deja vu wise, and she didn't come home then. And then I haven't experienced a deja vu the same way, like a full fledged one, ever since.
Because you've been aware of them.
So everything's changed from that.
And that
It's
comes
wild.
from that documentary, or movie, What the Bleep, Down the Rabbit Hole. Um, Basically, the double slit experiment, where you're shooting particles at a wall, you get the double slit on the wall behind it. But then if you um, watch how the particles reach their destination, they change. And just just because it knows, or you know, you're observing it, and that you are now a part of a variable in its randomness, I guess. So I mean,
Yeah, that's a
from
very strange
scientific,
thing.
it's
And
from
it
like
reminds me,
scientific fact.
But which
just,
particular thing is strange?
well, just to oversimplify that to me, it's like, you know, we're observing a particle and it's acting differently versus when it's not observed.
It
You know,
acts,
just
yeah,
think about how you act when you're being observed, when you're in front
yeah,
of an audience, why wouldn't a particle act the same way? It's all energy essentially at the end of it. So I don't know, maybe that's an oversimplification, but I looked at that experiment and I thought, well, I guess it's strange, but maybe it isn't. I mean, we can't observe anything without our consciousness, right? And so if we're all this universal energy, it makes sense that particles would act the same way.
Like they themselves are consciousness,
Right.
and it's just like the form consciousness takes, and that's just what we're all talking about realizing now. It's like, oh yeah, we're just consciousness taking form. We're cool people. Look at this.
could be the true reason for the hereditary, um, knowing that that's a snake, or knowing that could be the instinctual, the root of it comes from
Yeah.
how electrons react being observed or not. I mean, that makes sense.
One variable in that whole thing may come into the ground of like sacred geometry and the foundation of the way that stuff plays, because it might be hard to really say what those sorts of things are doing, because if we're talking about the platonic solids being the foundation of all matter, those structures representing the foundation of matter, then a lot of this stuff obviously has to come out of that. I mean, I'm not too, full throttle on an understanding of the Akashic records and things like that, but it may seem like, however authentic and true Akashic recording is, I don't have direct personal experience about it, but it seems to be a real thing as far as some circles I've listened to and talked about.
So explain that to me,
resonate.
and explain that to me and to the audience. Like the
Akashic
Akasha record.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Akashic record seems to be the place from which all patterning of life experience is pulled from in order to create the experience from.
Okay.
So it's like just like the warehouse of, at least that's kind of my take on it off the cuff. I haven't really studied it, but it's if you can kind of prepare yourself apparently to go read it and read the records of life, and then it just puts into question whether time is linear and all that discussion and stuff too, because if everything is just recorded in this history, I don't know. There's a lot of weird conversation about how, like, Drunvala Melchizedek talks about how we're cultivating something completely authentic and new in some way, unique by our current earthly experience here. That we're being given a chance to develop new and unique things that haven't been created before. So that's something interesting to consider, in the sense of, if time is not linear, then well, what does that mean? There's so many weird questions that come up when we're discussing the quantum flux of things,
things that people really don't understand. They can kind of see, I do this and this is the outcome. I do this and add one variable. This is a complete different outcome, but we can't understand how that variable affects the outcome, and that's for anything.
I'll always plug dowsing and the authentic use of a pendulum as a way to gauge and dial in and see an expression of things. Because to me, in my experience over the past 7 years working with someone who's become kind of a master at the trade, it's helped me to see that there is a way to validate some degree of how the energy functions and flows. And there is actually going to be a workshop coming up. So here in Buffalo area, to be tuning into how to use a pendulum, to be doing it with trust and clarity. So that's something that I'm involved, because I wanted to get more in tune myself with what my teacher's doing. And he recommended this woman. She's finally starting to put it together. And now, after years of trying to make it happen, it's happening. So anyway, just want to plug pendulum work, because it's not just woo science. There's some cool shit going on.
No, yeah, you should explain more about dowsing.
And should I keep profanities down to a minimum? Because every once in a while they might jump out.
That's fine. No, go ahead.
I'm sure it'll come out more.
Yeah, it's cool. So should I just mention about dowsing more pendulum?
Go ahead.
So-
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. Well, a lot how like ley lines are found using L rods in that sort of dowsing for water, and where ley lines cross in nature. You can also use a particular kind of stone on the end of a chain and tune in with this tool of divination, you might call it, or um, the term that's come up in light of using it is called dialing in. And that's kind of what my teachers have been using, talking about it, is dialing into a certain pattern and being able to see how things function or flow and able to map systems of energy in the body and even because he uses a pendulum in his practice one-on-one with people, and it helps him to navigate how to encourage energy flow through his understanding of traditional Chinese medicine. It's something that he helps to illustrate for his clients about the kinds of things that they can use, Qigong particularly, the energy science of that amazing medicine. Um, he's helping his clients through that work to help them maintain balance on their own, and using the dowsing in this one-on-one setting to help to keep the flow established in the body and work with the meridian systems to keep that functional.
Okay.
And so that's to what extent that somebody could use a stone on the end of a chain to bring well-being into life. I mean, it's a really cool
gotta be
blessing mechanism,
yeah.
Yeah,
If
it's
we
like
can grab
going
like-
back to the amulets of the past and the
Yeah.
the ancient countries in Egypt and all that. And I think we lost something definitely in history. We had a lot of book burning and whatnot in the past, and I think we've probably been here before in this. We think we have all this knowledge and whatever, but I think a lot of knowledge was lost in history, and we're going to come to find that the only way to know what to do next is we're going to have to go backwards and figure out what was already done to kind of figure out, almost like to branch off of our current knowledge. We're going to have to go back and figure out what the ancient knowledge was and if there was any validity to it.
That brings me to I was talking about yesterday. I think of knowledge as a circle, and think of a clock. Say our knowledge today, or just individually, not collectively, but say like 1 o'clock. We're at 1 o'clock, and say 1:30 we figure out light speed, and 2 o'clock we become a type 2 civilization. But if you keep going around that clock, and the more and more you learn, the more and more you take and want to become, you all ultimately will always end up back to simplicity when you get back to 12. And sometimes I think instead of the long forward around the clock, the long time it takes to learn these bags of knowledge, going backwards a few minutes or going backwards 10 or 20 minutes will take us closer to almost kind of like a portal to our future, by finding our roots.
Right.
So I've always believed that if something doesn't make sense, it's because its roots aren't. Um, it's been too. What's the word? It's too many man-made things have happened. Like too many book burnings or too many things have happened to keep us on the right path. You know, um, from that, like religion, like certain religions that are really man-made and perverse and far away from the true meaning of the golden rules. So I think technology and anything in life, um, I think if you just simplify it, you go back in time and you're closer to the greatest knowledge you can ever, find.
What about instead of a clock being a circular, what if it's a time in a spiral?
Yeah,
It's been an interesting thing. Like around the 2012, it was a concept that kept on coming into mind. Like, oh, is it like the spiral is getting closer to a point and then it starts spiraling out the other direction on the
going
other.
back. Yeah.
Maybe it's something like that. But spirals have always fascinated me. A lot of my art kind of involves that and things. I don't know. Spiral's a cool subject. I think it might allude to that because there is a progression. There seems to be time moving forward. It's not exactly cyclical.
Everything is in a spiral.
Yeah.
Even light flowers and everything.
So,
Fibonacci
Shout
spiral.
out.
the whole metaphor of the clock that you used kind of reminds me of a discussion I heard with Elon Musk talking about artificial intelligence, and his biggest concern is that we're already in it, that maybe we're
Oh
you know,
yeah.
we're moving towards creating it and making it, you know, a lot better than it is now. But do you think that's a possibility? Like we feel like we've been here before because we have. We've already created this artificial system to basically see how things play out differently. And so we've maybe created a bunch of systems just to kind of run, you know, the test of what's the best. And if you can take, I don't know, if you can take the morality out of everything and simplify it to a computer system and really just
Sure.
let it play out. I mean, do you
See
think
if it
that's
can handle the
possible?
system events, like run that wire and see if it'll hold the charge,
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it comes down to that, and because it really seems to allude at least to something like that, that we're, all of our reflecting into just all that territory of what sacred geometry represents, and all these things that we're alluding to the matrix of some sort. And if we can put our concerns about whether it's benevolent or not aside, kind of look at it neutrally, we can maybe find some way to utilize those reflections, or like drawing sacred geometrical patterns seems to do something to one's consciousness in an evolutionary way. So
I
it's
always come
interesting.
back to the thinking, you know, when talking about that, when talking about the possibility of being inside an AI already, you know, you have to kind of, you know, reset the clock, like you said, and go back to, you know, 11:59 before it dings over to midnight.
Exactly.
And you still have to think, okay, maybe we are, but what created that? And what created, you know, what created the original creation is always my question. So maybe we are, maybe we aren't, but we still
I
have
think
to go back
the
and
original
think about,
creation is um,
Pure
once one
intent,
becomes
right?
aware of itself, it consciousness. I believe,
right? And so, I mean, is that what AI will feel when it becomes sentient,
aware of
essentially?
itself. Yeah. Yeah.
Will it be as conscious as we are, as we presume that we are? You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying?
There's always the question as to whether what we're being shown at the time that we're being shown it, why are we seeing it then, and who's doing that, and why. There's just so many questions around. Like, even so, you've seen Elon Musk speak. I mean, you've heard of this, so you mentioned this now, but it's out there. Who put it out for what reasons? I mean, I don't. I'm not trying to get all conspiratorial, but there's always all these spins on all these topics, and it seems that it can be maybe more of a distraction and a perversion than. I mean, to me, it also seems that everything in some way aids to our purification and evolution into a more true space. I think we're really ascending and moving forward, and I find
Right,
it weird when
right, right,
people
right.
don't try to
That's
really
what
check.
that's what I was just going to add on to that. Is it seems like we're moving towards something. Like we all know we're worker bees working towards something, but we can't see the end goal. And maybe
Well,
there
I
isn't
think
an end
once
goal, right? But we're on some progressionary path for sure.
I think everybody individually is aware of themselves, and I think when AI or any kind of artificial intelligence has been involved, it created more networking. So more people have become more aware of other people, and I think that collective awareness is eventually going to have to meet somewhere. And those bags of knowledge and when there's so many people, you become burned out and numb from certain events. It's kind of like you go on rotten.com when you're younger and you see somebody dead and you're like, oh man, that's sick, that's gross. But then now it's numbing. It's not as exciting. There's no shock value to that anymore.
Right. Yeah, and I
So
think that's
collectively,
unfortunately, yeah, that
but
particular.
collectively, everyone is
Go
going to
ahead.
get numb to all that. So then what happens is
They're numb to all what? Everybody's gonna get numb to what?
numb to like emotion is they're not going to be as shocking. Like
Yeah, and I think
you
that's
know,
partially and mostly responsible, or you know, the reason that that exists is because of the technology that we have now. It's
well,
just, you know, you can see
maybe
and
yeah,
do anything you want to do online. You know what I'm saying? Like it's
I just want to plug that hopefully our evolutionary is going to take us more to a conscious space of how we're living emotionally. I mean, to me, it seems only natural that if we are evolving as this consciousness itself, then even our questioning of whether we're doing it or not is a side, like it's already passed. We shouldn't even question whether we're
that's the
doing it or
clock.
not,
That's the
right?
clock. That's the clock.
Well, because if the
It'll
if
eventually
it,
go back
right,
to
so we
that
see what's
root.
coming.
Exactly.
Why not jump on that ship and
Yep.
just assume the position then?
We always try to grow and more and go crawl up that clock, man. 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, further into space, better, more technologically advanced, but we become less of an emotional species. And I think the only AI is turning us into an AI to act just logically. And then, yes, eventually we'll become so knowledgeable and so large that we'll start all back over into our roots, which is just pure conscious state of, like you're saying, we will get there. It's just the path of,
maybe as an experience, but
yeah,
we're already there as it is my point.
yeah, oh yeah,
Right,
yeah,
that's the whole
yeah,
thing. So now we're going to make all these things helping to illustrate it as we've been over the
yeah,
years. And it's an amazing thing to see how the world's doing that, whether conscious or not of it. They're alluding
yeah.
to their awakening, you know.
And there's bad and good with everything. I mean, I when I hear AI taking over, like you automatically think Terminator,
Right.
you know, and that's not, that's
It's going to be in
nothing.
service to something much higher. I'm sure.
Exactly, yeah.
There's no doubt about it.
But yeah, that's
I
interesting.
thank you for bringing it up because it's a great topic matter to be discussing whether AI
Yeah,
is going to serve us in a benevolent way or not, because certainly there's a lot of questions as to whether it will.
Yep.
And it seems to me like with all the magic in the air and the synchronistic variables that I experience on a daily basis that continue to remind me of how really incredible this thing is, have doubts and concerns like that is like a waste of time. Because I mean they're like, yeah, they're relevant questions. I'm not trying to knock anybody for feeling and questioning that way, but because I have as well. I'm not been through the mill. But I'm just saying, like, there's reasons to not stay in it and flow states to be in. And I've been doing art this entire birthday weekend. I've been on like a madman making crazy music and art, and it's been the most invigorating thing. Finally, my life is starting to turn around because I'm choosing to feel this way.
You're grounded.
You know,
You
and it is
found your
rooted
grounding,
now,
yeah.
right, into this passionate thing. And that's of course what I want to. I'm sure that AI is going to encourage us and help us to be more passionate and exponential in our ability to function and share.
As
Yeah,
long as
yeah.
everybody stays rooted. If you don't stay rooted, you don't stay grounded, then you get lost in all
It's
that.
true.
But
We're going to come
It's
to a
in,
space where it's undeniable, though, to be grounded.
Yep.
Like,
yeah,
right now it
it'll
should
be
be already.
illogical.
Like it is
yeah.
illogical right now to not feel your roots and to breathe into the earth and stay connected, because that's what we should be doing. Everybody doing every day.
it seems like we advance to a point where it's almost, I forget the name of the principle, but it's essentially like, you can only have a certain amount of friends before you're not really friends with those people anymore. I forget the term for it,
Yeah.
but it's almost the same with knowledge. You can only learn so much before you have to kind of go backwards and retrace your roots and understand, who you are and what you are. We get so consumed with the external, and we
And
forget that
since
all these things are internal.
since we can date the day by, you know, what we were talking about before and with the Florida shooting and all that, um, and this is not changing the subject at all, but it's when you get further away from your roots, now we take away guns, okay? Now we take away what knives. People are still gonna beat each other. What we're gonna take away the right to learn a martial art or a right to defend yourself. I mean, if you stick on a path of taking things away, we're gonna take it all away until we have nothing.
Right.
Well,
Well,
I
this
think the
is.
big distraction of that, I just want to mention real quick
Go ahead.
that I think a lot of the hype around the current affairs is huge distraction. I just want to continue to give a shout out to the facts of the matter of our evolutionary position, because we're certainly moving fastly beyond the bounds and control systems of whatever was from the past, because it's irrelevant to where we're going. And those things that may choose to try to stand in the way of that, I wish them all the very best, because they're going to need it, because where we're going doesn't fit to that.
No, it
You know,
doesn't.
and
Yeah.
so it's either you adapt to that, because we're already adapting to the fact that our hearts need to sing and you can't keep us from that. And why is there blame anyway? That's my question. We don't need to blame nobody. That's,
Yeah.
you know, I'm always going to try to speak on those higher notes. Like, 'cause I just started getting into you and me and that and trying to blame stuff.
Yeah,
I
no,
want
yeah.
to catch myself in this way of speaking, because I don't need to be trying to displace my energy and try to get all worked up, like giving the wrong things this amount of energy. We're very strong
Absolutely.
beings, you know. We start fearing and getting angry, and we feed
Yeah.
those things like
Every
no place
time we
business.
fear something,
We charge it up.
but we
give it
take
energy.
it away. We
Well,
try to take it away instead of learning how to, kind of like I was just saying with my relationship.
if you fear something,
Like,
take it away. I mean,
just like a relationship, you can either get mad when she leaves or he leaves. You could suck it up and walk away, or you can try and make it work. And what I mean by trying to make it work is you can try and make yourself work, so you can do the best you can. And so logically, emotionally, and statistically, it's in your best interest. So I think with, like, what you're saying. You instead of people trying to fear something and be like, okay, we fear just because it's popular right now. We fear assault rifles, which there's no difference between a rifle and assault rifle, really. I mean, one's made out of plastic parts and looks fancy, but it shouldn't be given that name as an assault. It's the one who uses it would be doing the assault.
Oh, but at a certain level, it's cool to call it an assault rifle.
Yeah.
If you're the weird part in the military or something is like it's cool to be doing that to people. It's like, wait a second.
Yeah, and there's nothing cool about it.
Why have we gotten away from our sacred connection to this life and each other? I'm like, come on.
And my argument with the gun thing is like I dislike guns, okay, but there's way more illegal guns on the streets than there are illegal ones. So if you take everyone's right away and the illegal ones, then you're sitting ducks. And until the environment changes, like you said, until
our needs are
being met,
right?
I mean, then it shouldn't even be a bitch. It should be about maybe the psychological disorders in people's minds. Maybe the school system should be more aware, and people should be more aware of people's issues and problems.
Shout out to Waldorf education. Just that's where it's at, my friends.
I want to touch on the subject while we're still on it. So the school shooting, I've been seeing a lot, obviously, on social media, and trying to dissect it all. And you see a lot of people just kind of knee jerk react to it and say, "Oh, we should ban this. We should ban, whatever." My thing has always been, slippery slope. Like you ban one gun, I mean, another one's going to come out, of course. And that's not the end game for the people that want to ban guns. But I saw a meme really that kind of put it into perspective. It's kind of hilarious. So the same people that are calling for, AR-15s to be banned, like you've been calling the president Hitler for the last year, and you now want him to take all your guns away. Like, do they not know history? Like, it was the best meme, like, because it's so perfect. It's like the guy that you're calling Hitler, that you're worried about killing everyone, you want him to simultaneously take your guns away so he can kill everyone. Not that he's going to, but like that's how stupid the arguments become. Like it was a perfect meme. And my thinking on all of this, every time it happens, like I was in Vegas when the Las Vegas massacre happened, and I was terrified. I heard it on the radio, and I thought it was a terrorist attack when I heard it because it just that's the way it sounded like. It sounded like machine guns going off. And I don't know. Every time I hear it, I think we've gotten so far away from our roots. Like, say what you will about the Judeo-Christian values, but if you're going to replace a system that's worked, the system that abolished slavery and gave us the Constitution and gave us Western values and laws and you know um, European law, essentially. If you're going to abolish that, you better have a really good plan of what you're going to replace it with. So go ahead and give me some thoughts on that.
I mean, how controversial do we want to get? Do we want to start talking about Benjamin Fulford? It's a weird, there's a lot of wild subject matter that guy starts talking about, it seems to me there's a lot of, I don't know. Do we want to go? Do we want to talk about that stuff?
I mean,
it's deep and it seems to be fairly confirmable on certain levels. And I think over time, we're just going to see the fact that that man was speaking from his heart, whether he had 100% full information or not, regardless of whether he's saying was accurate or not. We were doing dowsing on some of his blog posting to see, is this a shill argument or what? Because if that is, I'm not wasting any of my time, which I try not to spend a lot of my energy anyway on things that are going to rile me up emotionally and get me stuck in the game like that. I'm trying to be too progressive to kind of get slowed up by the trudgery of the currents. I want to flow on this on high levels. But anyway, to coming into but it seems to be just to say that his blog posting seems to be incredibly heart-based and that he really does mean what he's saying by there are worldly events transpiring to help the world into a space of absolute benevolence and restoration and healing and everyone's needs being met. And like that's the background current of this elephant in the room. Like, why are we not? Like that's why I'm saying the distractions have gotten so out there where this
you can kind of see that. I mean, there's just a lot of distractions out there because the same people that are claiming to be progressive and wanting progress are also the same people that are holding it back and trying to move things towards group identity again. Like you're going backwards. And so we're in this war of ideas right now, trying to move forward and you know, can you move forward and still hold, I guess old school or conservative ideas? Is that possible, or do you kind of need both dynamics at all time to split it in the middle and say, okay, this is what's best. We're going to go with the consensus of what's best. Can you do that simultaneously? Is the question.
I guess that to me is like, well, we got to choose embodiment and live from the heart, and then that becomes a very personal question. Then are we gonna, are we gonna see all of these things that we see as an opportunity to deepen and breathe deeper into ourselves and be more true in the moment and be inspired there? Because to me, that seems like that's a huge groundwork from where we can find
Most
common ground.
People have to learn that making a sacrifice is the biggest.
What, I need to slow down, man? You tell me I gotta slow down? Like really, I gotta
No,
like
I
take
mean,
life. No, but that's what people's
yeah,
argument would be.
yeah.
Like, what, I gotta slow down and actually breathe and focus on what
But
I'm
it's a
feeling?
sacrifice for a larger, like it's like
You have to sacrifice.
yeah, it's like I mean
Sacrifice time and energy and attention off people.
it's like a car. I mean, are you gonna put a better stereo in when your tires are about to blow up? I mean, you got to sacrifice certain things to prioritize the movement. I mean, you can't move anywhere in your car if you have no tires, but I'm sure you could sit there and listen to tunes all day.
Oh, but people would try, right? I mean, that's the equivalent of the metaphor. People sure
Yeah.
try to drive
Yeah,
that car with no wheels on it.
And that's the thing. I think the system that we have now, we have a pretty fair system overall in the West. And so it really becomes a question of, are you going to allow the people who think there's, it's all relative, like there's relative morality and there's relative, truth. Are you going to let those people run the show, or are you going to come back to the universal truths that we know that exist?
I think those universal truths won't have it any other way but to get the heart singing and playing like it's nobody's business in a time like this. I mean,
Yeah.
that's my directive. If I
I
have
think,
anything to say about it.
yeah. No, I think
My prospects are going to do
I
that.
think that's a good point, and I think you made a really good point with just everybody's too distracted. Like there's so many things to be distracted with, and you really got to get back. Like in my opinion, you really got to get back to your roots of, okay, why am I here? What am I doing, and what do I want to be doing next? And you have to be asking yourself that constantly. You can't just sit in the same place and expect to grow and talk to the same people and expect to think any differently. Like you have to engage with all different kinds of points of view to progress. And we have, unfortunately, right now in this country, we have a huge divide of people wanting to censor things and put political correctness over top of everything as if that's going to somehow move us forward.
There's no more best friends in schools, you know that? There's a school, I forget which state it is in.
Yeah, I heard about that.
They're banning the use of using the word a best friend because it makes others feel left out.
Right. And so I guess that's a good question. So do you just ignore that kind of stuff?
I
You just
don't think you
basically
should.
say, "Oh, they're
I think it
crazy,"
needs to be
or do
applied.
you call them out? Do you just call them out on it?
Call them out because that's just taking things way too.
My neutral position says
far.
bless the divide. That's what I would say, and see what happens.
Bless the divide.
Bless the divide. You called it a divide, and I was like, oh, let's bless that divide. 'Cause, like
What
the
just
power
worries
of-
me is that we're gonna get so far to the point of, no return that I feel like it's gonna be really hard to come back from that. And obviously, I listened to a lot of things during the last election, and I kind of saw like people were sick of it. And say what you will about Trump, but people were so sick of political correctness. I mean, that's basically what gave us Trump. It's not
Political
that he's the best
correctness
guy
is
in the
like
world.
what political correctness is exactly what somebody like Kim Jong Un would want. A
Of
dictator.
course. Yeah, I mean, he wants absolute utopia, except half his
Yeah.
population starving.
Just like the people who say take the guns away, but you're Hitler. I mean, it's the same argument. I mean, if you take away what everyone's rights are, I can't say, oh, he's black, but I mean, there are colors, and you are black, or if you are white, or if you are yellow. I mean, the political correctness doesn't
gotta be
have
black,
to.
man.
Yeah, I mean, it's like there shouldn't be a divide. The people who say, well, hey, he's racist. Well, you're truly the one who's racist because maybe you're the one who sees the color to feel like you're a victim. there's so many
It's just another distraction.
yeah, it's another distraction. So I mean, politically correctness is the biggest piece of
Distraction.
shit
It's a big distraction.
I've ever heard. I mean,
Yeah.
if you take away everyone's right to say what's real and what's in front of them, or take away their choices of being an individual and have an individuality, then you have become no more than that dictator ran state that you're afraid of. And it's amazing how hypocritical like some people are, because they're not seeing the roots, right? If you see the root and then you see, okay, we're going to take away what people can say and can't say, or we're going to take away a gun, we're going to take away a knife, and now we're going to cut your hands off so you can't touch anyone. In the end,
Yeah.
what's the goal? The goal would be you would be a tongueless, eyeless, handless.
Ignorant.
You just might as well be a brain in a jar.
Yeah.
Not even, I guess, because you can use it, but you'll just be a heart in a jar pumping blood for something larger to think for you. I mean, that whole thing.
What are we gonna do when we upload all our brains doing some machine like we're talking about and all that crap? Like, come on, isn't it cool enough? Are we like being people is cool? Like, wow.
Instead of the pharmaceutical companies nickel and diming everybody's money,
Right.
and oh, we can cure cancer, but we're not gonna because we won't make money curing you. Instead of uploading our brains in AI, or Obama when he gave how many billions was it towards learning more about the human brain so we could do that in the future. I mean, that thing happened, and nobody really knew about it happening, but that money could have went to something else, maybe curing something. And
similarly here in Niagara Falls, our mayor purchased like a $450,000 sculpture. It wasn't even unique, and put it in the middle of this thing. It wasn't even from a local artist. Come on. Like, everybody here's like, come on, there's a lot of potholes that could be filled with $450,000. I think it was some crazy amount. It might not have been totally that much, maybe 300,000. Anything.
Do you see what he did over there with Three Sisters Island?
And that, right? Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's plants and species of plants that only exist right there, and Goat Island, all those, and Strawberry Island, all those little places. He's gonna clear them out.
There's more. There's plans for more of that. You're saying?
He wants to clear more up.
Oh.
And it's like that exists only in one place in this entire world. But because of this place isn't as exotic as maybe like Madagascar or something, where we would put all their funds into protecting, nobody wants to.
Well, shout out to investors out there in Niagara Falls. Needs your help.
Yep.
Deister's doing some weird things.
They're cutting down fully healthy. I forget what they call it. Your Norwegian. Are they Norwegian maples or Norwegian oaks? And Beaver Island.
Oh,
most beautiful trees that we have, but since they're technically illegal because they're invasive, but they don't do anything wrong.
On a beach.
Yeah.
Come on.
But we're gonna cut them down and make it just look like might as well be a golf course more than what it is. But
because we just don't have enough things to spend money on.
Yeah, we're gonna spend time cutting these beautiful trees on. And they cut them down. Now it's just left with these stumps that are probably 8 feet around. These trees are so amazing.
And did they do something sacredly?
You guys keep talking. I'll be right back.
No, they didn't do it.
I'm saying, like, why would they harvest the trees and do something cool with them if they're going to do something so stupid?
They had a wood chipper there.
Chipper.
They just chipped it off. This beautiful
tree. Let people make tables and come on.
Yep, nope, couldn't do any of that.
There's people that make those giant tables out of the middle halves of trees and stuff, and like, come on.
And we could use it. I mean, wood chips, because that's more. I guess wood chips are
make more money that
valuable.
Way? Yeah, right.
We can make a table out of wood chips.
Yeah. We grind it down, put it in the wood chips, and put it back together with glue.
Yep.
There's a better table for it.
There you go, and they sell that big one.
Oh my God.
But the things I see
day to day, the things I see,
the distractions around me.
The distractions I see. Yes, the things I see and the distractions around me.
It's terrible, man. It's really terrible. I mean, I see people who have the attitude of a child who, hey, if there was somebody being violent around you and you're like, hey, man, calm down. Oh, you calm down. It's like, no, that's not how things work in life. But this seems to be everyone's response.
Unfortunately, we've been raised in the competition mentality, and this is a byproduct. Yep. So, hey, Zach, you back with us yet?
Yeah, I'm back. So how familiar are you guys with the Pareto principle?
News to me. What is it?
I don't know what that is.
So basically, it's the principle of it's kind of crazy because it's actually goes back to the Bible, but it's basically like to all those who have, much will be given, and to those who have none, everything will be taken. And I know I'm paraphrasing that. I'm not doing a very good job of it, but essentially
So,
it's the 80-20 rule, right? And you see
yeah.
that all across, science and basically everything, language, even, how many words we use versus how many words exist.
Mhm.
Um, take any great, book that's ever been written, and 100 of the most common words are used 50% of the time in the book, right? And so it's this principle that basically says the more you have, the more you'll get, and the less you have, the less you'll receive.
And that's
And
nature.
it is
That's
nature. And
it's
and
one
what I was
hundred.
going to say is you're making the point about how Niagara Falls needs investors or whatnot. Well,
Protection.
Protect. Yeah.
the Pareto principle basically dictates that that's not going to happen,
All right.
because where it's happening is, new growth, and it's always different. Like the same, it's like the same thing when you're talking about like the 1%. Well, the 1% is always going to exist as far as, monetary value goes. There's never going to be a distribution that works
I'd
other
like to say,
than,
or I'd like to think so.
well, other than the Pareto principle. Like if you look at it how it's worked forever, like it's probably never going to happen where it's distributed fairly or any differently than it is now. But that to say this, the 1% changes. It's not always the same people holding the 1%, right? You could be a millionaire and have a kid who doesn't know what he's doing with money, and by the next generation that money's gone and it's in somebody else's pocket. So that to be said, like it just, if you look at how many different places that the Pareto principle exists in the world, I don't think it's like a constant. It's something you can't change. So
It's
it's,
everywhere.
if we know that it's never going to change, what's the point in fighting it? Like we have a system in place now that basically allows people to move in and out of those ranges of monetary wealth. So I mean, isn't that good enough? I guess is my point.
Nope. I mean, I'm an Aquarius, man. I got a lot of Aquarius energy in me. I'm really evolutionary, and I will always challenge the facts. Like, there's too many variables in there to say anything absolute. Like, that thing will be concrete forever because everything's changing, and we seem to be in a really incredible evolutionary flux energetically. And that means very different things for a future if we're exponentially growing in a high vibe way,
Sure.
you know.
And maybe it changes away from money. As maybe let's not focus on the monetary aspects, but what I'm saying is throughout
Well,
all
break
of
it down.
recorded history and unrecorded history, everything that we can go back and calculate is based upon the Pareto principle.
Break the
Evolution,
Pareto
everything.
principle. Break it down to the ridiculousness. Break it down to absolutely nothing.
And
Well,
make it clear how that's
the,
functioning with with interaction and relationship.
the
That's
Every
easiest
what
the
I'm
easiest way to think about it, the easiest way I've ever heard it is, so think about just the simplest thing you can think of. 80% of the carpet in your house is not used. 20% of the carpet in your house is used 80% of the time. So it's the
yeah.
same. It's the same amongst everything. You use what you need the most, and everything else kind of becomes the other 80%, right? So
While
you're
we're
only able to do so much at once.
while we're talking about this, I'm kind of drawing a picture in my head of um, how we can break it down to the ridiculousness of actually maybe using it as a benefit to the lesser percent. Like move the lesser percent into the majority and switch, like a switch of
Well,
the
yeah, and it's
percent.
funny.
Because
It's funny you
the
right,
percents always exist, but who says who belongs in which side?
right, and it's funny you say that. If you look at, like, let's say, I was just looking at a couple. It was like six different graphs over the last 200 years, and we're basically doing that. 200 years ago, 90% of the population was impoverished and in extreme poverty. Now it's
Mhm.
basically flipped. In 200 years, we've flipped it to now where only 10% left of the world's population is in like extreme poverty. You see that with India now is exploding. Uh, China is exploding as far as their economies
Yeah,
go, and it really is shifting already.
absolutely.
So,
And
oh,
I look at it, as just think of like a I always tend to go back to like the nature because nature is like to me the most perfect thing. It does exactly what it's supposed to do. It gives back. It's not disconnected from love, meaning it gives back more than it takes. So I look at it and I see a tree. Okay, the tree grows big, forms a canopy. Everything under that canopy starts to die, all right, around that tree. So that tree can drop its seeds, replant more of its seeds, and not have competition when it grows. That's the exponential growth of the people who have a lot have more, and they'll continue to have more
exactly.
because that tree, that canopy. Now the variables in this can be the larger this tree is, the bigger the canopy. Um, the more nutrients this tree steals from the ground, the bigger it is. The roots have to go out. The roots have to go out really far until it runs into something it has to compete with just as large and just as exponentially absorbing and taking as this tree. And now, when that happens, um, the smaller things in that middle ground actually have more room to take advantage and take back, you know, uh, um, from that, because one tree will die.
Right. So, okay, so I've got the Pareto principle pulled up so I can explain it a little bit better. So, basically, visualize pea pods. So, a vital few pea pods produce a majority of peas. So, it's the 80-20 rule. And so, basically, it's constituted as a power law. You see it in evolution, you see it in economics, you see it in software, you see it in sports. Like, think of it this way, like 20% of the top athletes do 80% of the work.
And those top athletes take the most amount of damage in a sense. I mean,
Oh, exactly.
like the most used part of your carpet will be the carpet that doesn't exist anymore. Just like the big tree that ends up fighting the other one will die. That's the Pareto principle is I think is a great thing, but you just have to learn what part do you want to be on.
What was the original question, Zach?
So, well, if you break it down, I was just basically breaking it down from what you said earlier. Just
Yeah,
kind of
break
like,
it down to
does
the
it
ridiculous.
like do we understand, what the Pareto principle is and how it basically dictates almost all of everything we can graph. You know what I mean? Everything we can graph. So if we can acknowledge that a distribution scale like this exists, is it something we should concern ourselves with at all, or should we accept that it's probably the way that it's always going to be?
Well, you can choose which side you want to be on. So I think I would concern myself with.
Um, what can finish that?
Oh yeah, I think I would concern myself with it. I think it's an important thing to not just say, well, this is just the way it is, um, because I don't want to be the one with nothing, always losing something. And I think once you're aware of where you stand and how the system works, just like anything, you could kind of
Yeah, I don't
you
think
can
there's anything within the law saying that, you as an individual, you can't move into, you know, the realm of the 20%, let's say, the better portion.
no, but if you're
But
someone who
you have to
has
do
no
it.
knowledge of
You
it,
have to, right. Right, right. And it's just going to happen. But what I'm saying is if you take those first steps, if you take the small little steps and start to really start from baseline and getting back to, going back to your roots, I think that every day you turn the dial, you're getting that much closer.
What's the name of this theory again? Or
Pareto. It's Pareto, Pareto principle.
cool. I think that there's some cool ways. When we initially started talking, I was wanting to illustrate some ways we can use these variables to evolve our consciousness and kind of take advantage of what I'm calling the magic in the air, and the idea that we could work with this principle to maybe put an illustration together about. Uh, I find that our attention and the way we spend it is a lot more like a currency that we should be paying attention to than the paper in our pocket. And that'd be a really cool graph and concept to help illustrate for people, because it's like we spend so much attention on things that don't exactly aid us in what we're really trying to achieve overall. Maybe we don't even have a sense of what that is because we're too absorbed in spending attention on things that really don't matter to what our heart's desires are. And these distractions are keeping us from that. And to me, that's why our needs aren't being met.
Right.
If I really focus on why it seems that everybody's feeling the burn, being struggling in this time, it's like, I don't know, we're fighting everything. We're fighting ourselves for not having enough time to slow down. Blame the system if you want, because then everybody's just working for their survival. I mean, to me, that's a huge discrepancy. Everybody's just trying to get by and keep on going, and when it really doesn't have to be that way. And so props to those people out there that are working toward a new world, and the actual people in the field and doing the research and putting the cases together and making it all happen. Much love and support to those people, because they need all that support so we can move on with this thing. I mean, they got all the support they need is what I got to say, but I'm just saying, send love their way, because whistleblowers and people that need to put things into play, this is their time to shine.
Yeah, and you can see how even what you just said would play into that, So if we're supporting the people that we all kind of like, it's going to go along the same lines. We're going to prop up the same people essentially. And you're going to see that distribution line. Those people that rise to the top are now in the smaller group because we put them there. Because it's impossible to focus on 100 things. Like, you've got to focus on a small amount of things to make it work.
But if you think about potential and growth, everything has to start somewhere.
Exactly.
So, I mean,
yeah, but if our go isn't informed with enough stop first, our go is going to be really rambunctious and unfocused. That's kind of like a fun tangent I like to get on. It's like, hey, have you stopped yet to know how your go is actually going? Because if we were not taking time to slow down to really know how our intent is manifesting itself, it's just kind of out there, spewing like a hose that you got no spigot on and things. And you got to be able to hone this thing and refine the approach. I wanted to mention something. That's why I always got to write things down while we're talking. Yeah, I know. But yeah, I mean, I'm illustrating while we're talking. I'm making a cool picture.
It's really cool.
Yeah. I don't know, attention and spend. We were talking about that. Just you said something, Zach. Can you remind me of something you just said? Because you triggered. Would you remember what you just were saying a second ago?
Well, I basically said, if you were to pay attention to 100 things, you're not going to do 100 things well. So you have to pay attention to a small amount of things in order to progress, essentially, what I was saying.
Yeah, I guess that's probably something to do with, it ties into flow states, and the kinds of variables that we can maximize and make ourselves more efficient and relatable, make communication more functional. I think if we're really looking to be helpful in a time like this, we really have to be sincere and open and willing to be vulnerable on a certain level, to feel and to be able to communicate and not care what other people think. So that's the weird one, because it's, of course, we're going to be self-conscious on some level, but it's a willingness just to plow through it. And myself, I've been wanting to do a lot of live feeding on Facebook and things for a while, or whatever the case, and I just haven't really had the motivation or clarity of thought really to feel confident enough. But this is my year, and I just turned 33. I'm about to make this whole thing take off and make a whole new life for myself now. So
nice.
Much appreciation of this podcast. This is my first time really coming out publicly in a while, just off the cuff. This is really the first time. I was on the radio recently last year just to talk about an art show coming up, but this is pretty cool. I'm glad to be involved. I really appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, man. No, and like I said to Mike initially, it's like, whether we get a ton of people listening or not, it's not really the point. I think it's just the more that we can talk about the things that we really care about. It's maybe it changes one person, right? But that's one person. It's more than it changed before. You know what I mean? How often can you just stop a person on the street and talk to them for 2 hours? You can't do it. But how many people are going home to listen to podcasts and to listen to things that are expanding their knowledge? Like, YouTube is incredible for that. Like, it's given us um, this new medium to be able to reach people that we could never reach before.
Definitely something to maximize, and I'm really looking forward to being more involved. I'll be happy to be on this podcast anytime you guys want. Let me know what you want to talk about, and we'll definitely break some things down. This is a great space.
I have a few other people.
So
that love
I just
join.
wanted to talk about this book I did a short video on, and this kind of why I'm doing what I'm doing this year and why I'm doing things differently. Number one, I started a business, so I have to do things differently. But I wanted to kind of surround myself with not only people that are telling me the right things, but and everything I can get my hands on. So the book I'm currently reading, I haven't finished it yet because I was kind of taking a break and trying to digest what I had already read. But the book is called 12 Rules for Life, and it's by Dr. Jordan Peterson. And if you're not familiar with Dr. Peterson, you should definitely look him up on YouTube. He went from relative obscurity to now I think it's almost 900,000 subscribers in about 18 months. So he's exploded on YouTube, and like I've listened to so many of his lectures, and just how he talks about people, like so many people have a goal in life to be happy, and he's basically saying that's crap. Like that's not what it's about. What your life should be about, your core principle should be responsibility, and nobody's talking about that anymore. Like everybody's just talking about, oh, do this and you'll be happy. Well, maybe if you act responsibly in the world, a side effect of that is you will be happy and you'll teach other people to do the same. So the first chapter is basically, it's kind of a lot of it's tongue in cheek, and he tries to be semi funny throughout the book. But the first chapter is called "Stand Up Straight with Your Shoulders Back," and it basically just describes how you want to put on you want to be confident in what you do. You don't have to be right 100% of the time, but if you're speaking truthfully, if you're doing the right thing, um, you should have confidence in that. You shouldn't let your fears and your insecurities and your past transgressions hold you back. So I just wanted to recommend the book. It's definitely been helping me so far. And
That's
I'll
kind of
definitely,
funny that you said that, because that's exactly what I said to you when you made your real estate video.
yeah.
Exactly what I said.
No, I
to you.
know. And it's like I've definitely thought about that, but maybe I'm just not comfortable on video at this point.
Oh
So
no, I
it's not something I
understand, but
even notice. You
but
know what I mean? I don't take it as a criticism at all. I take it as
yeah,
constructive, if anything.
constructive.
But
Man, well, I hate to cut it short. My phone's gonna die. My low battery just popped up.
no, it's all good. I think this was good. I'm gonna put a little music to the beginning of it, and I'll edit out some of this end and the beginning portions. But other than that, I'm just gonna put it up. So,
All
anything
right,
else
man.
you guys want to add?
Well, when you put it up, wherever you put it up, let me know where you put it.
Yeah,
So I
I
can
will.
check it out. Are
I
you
think
putting
I'm
it on
gonna.
mine?
I think I'm gonna put it on mine, but I think I'm gonna put it on I'm gonna make a separate YouTube channel and
Yeah.
start putting them all on there.
All right, man. Well, I definitely got to get into that mines thing. You should
Well,
also. Yeah.
yeah, you
Are
can.
you?
What I did initially, just so you know, I started about 15 different Minds pages and had them all on auto refresh for about a week, and you just get a ton of points that way. And then what you could do is you could filter all the points to a main account, and you can use those points to promote whatever you want. So you get about 50 points per hour, and I'm up to right now. Like I have probably 300,000 points, so I can use those to get views on whatever I want. So.
Way to be,
yeah.
man. A crew.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And they're also talking about coming out with a cryptocurrency of their own and allowing you to convert your points into cryptocurrency, which would be pretty awesome. So,
That would be cool.
yeah, guys, we'll
Then
cut it there. I'll edit the end of this and cut all
you
this
should
part
save
out.
your points then, Zach.
Yeah, I have been.
Good idea.
But
All right, man.
all
Well,
right,
I'll
guys,
talk to you tomorrow or something.
that was nice. Yeah, well, I think we should plan on doing this at least once a week. So,
Yeah, we can do that.
Oh, let me know anytime. I'll be around.
all right, guys,
All right, man. I'll see you later.
have a good one. Bye.